There are two massive businesses that Tesla is now scaling that few investors are even aware how important and how big they are. With Tesla announcing they've now produced 100 million 4680 cells, their rate of production suggests they'll hit 200 million total cells sometime between December and April. What does Wall Street not understand? If the run rate is really more like 1 million batteries per day, that's nearly 270,000 Cybertrucks worth. These batteries are needed for bots, robotaxis, and cars, of course. Next, we'll also cover Tesla Semi. You might not think this is important until you realize, of course, that it's actually a $1 trillion business. Will Wall Street understand this? Our guest today, who did this analysis, is Cern Basher. Cern is a chartered financial analyst. He's currently running his own investment advisory firm called Brilliant Advice, providing wealth management services. Thank you again, Cern. Appreciate you joining me.
Hi, Herbert. It's great to be here again.
As always, you come with incredible analysis. I love today because you talk about the importance of 4680, but how it applies to all the different businesses that Tesla has. And the one thing I did not know, Tesla Semi could be $1 trillion business. And I've been ignoring that one, honestly. Another $1 trillion business popping up. So let's get started with your presentation.
That sounds good. Yeah, I don't think I fully appreciated how important of a building block the 4680 battery may end up being. So last weekend, they announced that they had produced their 100th millionth 4680 cell across all their factories. Initially, this is a couple of years ago now, February of 2022, they had made 1 million of them. And this is in their Cato Road facility in California. So since then, they've been working on developing the technology, perfecting the production, and they've announced various milestones along the way. And so 10 million in Giga Texas. And this was in June of 2023.
Okay.
And then they hit 20 million at Giga Texas in October the same year. So things were going along quite well. And then it took them all the way to June of this year to hit 50 million. So that was a fairly lengthy period of time where they were working through some issues. And then finally on September 14th, they hit 100 million. Now this is across all their factories. So presumably it's Texas and the Cato Road facility. So this adds a little bit of a wrinkle because we don't know how many batteries are being made at Cato Road in total. But still, I think we can still make some pretty reasonable calculations. So this is courtesy of AJ. And this is showing the battery cell production ramp and the cumulative number of cells. So what we just saw in those announcements on the previous page, this is the graph of that. And you can see that there's a pretty impressive ramp in terms of the cumulative production. By taking these numbers, we can calculate an average number of battery cells that were produced during each of these periods between these announcements.
Right.
And so if you just flip to the next page, Herbert. This is my calculation of that. So with the last announcement, it appears that they may have produced about 450,000 batteries on average per day over the 101-day period between the two announcements.
Yeah.
Right. Now, there's a little bit of guesswork in here because we don't know exactly how many were produced just at Giga Texas. So for these calculations, I'm assuming that 5 million batteries have been produced at Cato Road. And so if we start at 50 million and then 101 days later, that's now 95 million. That averages out to about 445,000 batteries per day at Giga Texas. Now, the interesting thing with this, and these little brackets I'm trying to show that with these brackets, is that the ramp of this wasn't, they didn't start the 101-day period producing 445,000 batteries, right? They ramped into this, and this is an average of all that, right? And so around each of these averages, there's kind of a starting and an ending number, right? And what we're really interested right now is what is the ending number as of September 14th for what the run rate is.
Yeah.
So let's just sort of talk about that. On the next page, it shows the cumulative battery production. So here you can see I use the 95,000 4680s batteries that have been produced. That's the blue line. The green line is my is an estimate of the run rate. And this is just using straight averages. So the run rate at the end of this period, September 14th, is about 162 million 4680 cells is the annual run rate.
Hmm.
Now, I think this is actually understating the number. But we'll come back to that in a second. Okay. Now, this sounds like a lot of batteries. So let's put it into a couple of terms maybe people might understand a little better.
Hmm.
How about number of Cybertrucks?
Okay.
So the 95 million batteries that perhaps have been made at Giga Texas, that would be enough to make almost 71,000 Cybertrucks. Now, we know they haven't made that many Cybertrucks yet, right? Maybe they've made 35 or 36,000 or something like that. But the run rate is probably something like 121,000 Cybertrucks. If they continued at this production level, that's how many Cybertrucks they could make over the next year or so, assuming no additional ramps in production. Okay, so a pretty sizable number. Okay, and I actually think the run rate's higher than this, and I'll explain why in a minute. Another way to look at this is energy content, right? If you think about how many gigawatt hours of energy, so the total batteries that they've made to date, if we assume 95 million, that's about 9 gigawatt hours of energy that they've produced in the 4680 battery cell. So a pretty sizable amount of energy in those cells. But the run rate is something north of 15 gigawatt hours. So they've very significantly ramped up production very, very clearly here. Yeah.
How many
But
megapacks does that represent?
um that's a good question. The capacity at Lathrop is 40 gigawatt hours, and that's about 10,000 megapacks.
Hmm.
So it would be what,
Let's say
about 4,000,
half of it. Yeah, sure.
something like that.
Yep.
Um,
Hmm.
but let's revisit this run rate again. I think these numbers are actually understating the situation,
Right.
and let's kind of dive into that. So one way to look at these calculations is just a straight line average. You take the 101 days,
Right.
you take the number of cells that were produced, and I'm assuming it was 45 million. They said it was 50, but again, there was some production that was made at Cato Road in the earlier years. So let's just assume it was 45 million over the 101 day period. Well, that averages out to about 450,000 cells a day.
Per day. Hmm.
Okay.
Average.
But they were ramping during this period. So this really isn't an accurate picture.
Yeah. Understood.
So it might look something like this.
Yeah.
And this assumes a straight line ramp. So
Hmm.
they might have started making a couple 100,000 batteries a day. And then every day they went to work, they ramped it up incrementally, same amount every day. Now, this is also highly unlikely,
Hmm.
right? But it's probably better than the straight line ramp. And if you use this, then that means that at the end of the period, they're making something like 700,000 batteries a day.
Exactly. Understood.
Okay. But what I think is more likely is something like the following
Hmm.
curve, where they brought a new line on or two, and suddenly you get a massive increase of production in a fairly short period of time. And you could be looking at 900,000 or even a million batteries per day run rate
Yeah.
using this kind of method. Okay. Now, these are the numbers that I came up with. They're pure guesses because we just don't know. But I think they're more reasonable than just using the straight line method of saying, oh, it's 450,000 batteries a day for the last 101 days, therefore that's the run rate. I don't think so. I think it's much higher than that. Now, AJ did his analysis of it, and AJ thinks the run rate is 1.5 million a day.
1.5 million per day. You're thinking it's about a million. He's saying
I'm thinking
1.5. Yeah.
I'm thinking it's about a million, maybe 900,000 to a million a day, and
Yeah.
AJ is saying it's about 1.5 million.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So at my level, and certainly at his level, I don't think anybody in Wall Street comprehends those numbers.
Exactly. No, this is brilliant concept because we all just go, they've hit 100 million cell. They were at 500 in several months. Therefore, it's likely that they'll be here by a certain number of months, which you're going to tell us what you think it is. But you're right. It's not like it was averaged. It was very much likely like this slow, maybe even a dip at the beginning as they figure things out. And then it needed to have skyrocketed at the near end in order for it to have actually hit that number. That is next level thinking there, Cern. I love it. It makes more sense that it's this something like this versus like you said, a flat daily thing and no improvement over the months.
It's a bit like if you're taking a road trip, and let's say
Yeah.
you've averaged 35 miles an hour on the road trip,
Hmm.
but at the end you're going 70 miles an hour, right? You're going to come up with a very different arrival time if you're assuming the average speed of 35 versus your current speed of 70.
Hmm.
And that's really what we're talking about here. What is the current speed of this production, right? The average is really not showing the true speed. So I devised a little way to see um, what the rate is going to be. And
Right.
I tried to think ahead a little bit, and I came up with this chart. Let's start on the right side. If the production rate and on September 14th was only 500,000 batteries per day,
Hmm.
then they should reach 200 million or so batteries produced
Hmm.
by early April next year. So before Easter, we should expect an announcement that they've hit 200 million. Hopefully, again, they continue to make these announcements,
Hmm.
right? Now, all the way on the left side, if it's a million batteries per day, then we should get an announcement a couple of days before Christmas,
Hmm.
give or take. If AJ is right and it's 1.5 million, then it's much earlier. I think
Wow.
November sometime.
It's September now, October, November, December. It's only 3 months from now, or let's say 4 months from now. No, it's September. It's middle September now. So 3 months from now, they might announce a 200 million cell. If you are correct with 1 million, could even be earlier. But you're saying if it was just, we were all wrong. It's the average. The latest will still be March that they'll hit the 200 million cell. Okay.
Which is still very good.
Yeah.
If it's any number in between that, then it's sometime in the first quarter of 2025.
Right.
I think AJ's 1.5 million, I think put it out to about November 19th, if I remember correctly,
Wow.
at the
Yeah.
earliest. So if he's
Yeah.
right, expect an announcement mid-November.
Couple of months. Hmm.
Yeah. Either way, this is a significant step forward, right? Now, if we go back to the Battery Day presentation, Tesla's goal was by 2022 to produce 100 gigawatt hours of 4680
Hmm.
cells,
Yep.
right? And they haven't done that yet. So they're behind, absolutely, right? And there's been a lot of frustration from a lot of people about this, but the 4680 battery was a new technology. It's very difficult to perfect this. It looks like they've made great strides. If they haven't gotten all the way there yet, they're getting close. And their goal was to produce 3 terawatt hours by 2030. It'll be interesting to see if they can catch back up, right? But they're looking to make pretty significant numbers.
Where are we now? Do you know? Instead of 100 gigawatt hours?
I believe the total was 9 gigawatt hours that they have produced.
So we're very far behind. But
Yeah.
that's because of issues with the 4680 that was very much delayed. But what you're suggesting now is that they seem to have figured something out and they're now scaling faster and faster, which means that they figure something out, that it's now stable enough that they're willing to invest and scale. Um, and so they're behind by a factor of 10. All right.
Yeah. And that
Okay.
sounds like a lot, but it can be very quickly made up
Mm.
as they bring on new lines of production. So this just shows, depending on what the production is, whether you want to look at the annual cells produced or maybe number of batteries per day in yellow, maybe that's easiest to think about. If they
Hmm.
produce 800,000 batteries a day,
Hmm.
that's about 29 gigawatt hours of energy a year. If they can get up to a billion cells a year or 2.7 million a day, that's about 95 gigawatt hours, right? So depending on how quickly they ramp and to what level, you can see what kind of annual energy output they can produce.
Now, this is where you're saying that they were trying to hit 100 gigawatt hours in 2022. So that's already behind 2024. But you think maybe at 1.1 million batteries per day. AJ thinks it could be up 1.5 million batteries per day. If in the next several months, 6 months from now, they're able to double it, triple it, then that's when, hey, we're already going to get to the 100 gigawatt hour by the end of the year.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I should say too, on that previous chart where I said they could hit these milestones between Christmas and Easter,
Hmm.
that assumes no further ramping,
Right. Exactly.
which actually is not correct because they did say that they plan to ramp further.
Yeah, and the question actually that brings up the question, which I like this idea. This is more likely what happened, right? And then boom. Now from here, what would happen now? Would
There
it
could be
just be straight
another
line?
stair step up.
Would it be another one of these? Boom. Is it you don't know, right? It could have been another line, or it could have been an issue that was struggling, and then they solved it.
Could be a combination of both. They probably solved the issue and then brought a new line on. It wouldn't make sense to bring new lines on if they have issues, right? You're just compounding the problem. But once you solve the issues, then you can bring new lines on. Everything's running smoothly. So it's a phenomenal number of batteries at 3 billion batteries a year.
Yeah.
It's 8.2 million a day. It's 295 gigawatt hours of batteries,
Crazy amount of batteries, millions a
right?
day.
And
Hmm.
we get excited about the Lathrop factory and then the Shanghai factory, each having 40 gigawatt hours of capacity.
Yeah. Okay.
So we're talking about a pretty large ramp up here too. Okay, so what are all these batteries going to be used for? Right, the two products today are the Cybertruck and the Semi,
Yeah.
and each Semi uses about 7.5 Cybertrucks worth of 4680
I see
cells.
what you did here.
Right.
Okay.
So you pick. You can have 7.5 Cybertrucks or one Semi.
Yeah.
What's more important?
Oh boy. If you know what? If each Cybertruck is like 100 grand, obviously, or 80 grand, boy, that's a lot more than 250,000 semi. But
Yeah,
yeah.
from that perspective, if you were constrained, you would put them all in Cybertrucks. I would imagine you would make more money doing that
Hmm.
because you're not going to sell a Semi for $750,000,
Yeah.
right? Now you might be able to sell a Semi for more than you realize, and we'll get to that towards the end of the
Hmm.
show. But still, yeah, the Cybertrucks would be the priority. But let's now look at what else 4680s could be used for and see how many they might ultimately need. So the Cybertruck uses about 1,344 cells. That's the best number that I've seen. And if you want to produce 250,000 Cybertrucks, you're
Hmm.
going to need about 336 million 4680 cells a year,
Hmm.
or 920,000 batteries
Hmm.
produced per day.
Okay.
And let's say they're there now. If they could produce 250,000 Cybertrucks,
Yeah.
then it looks like they're at least producing enough batteries for that.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's 32 gigawatt hours of energy for 250,000 Cybertrucks. Now, let's say they're ready to make the Semi, and the factory in Sparks, Nevada is ready to go, and they want to make 50,000 semis there. You need 10,000 or so batteries in each one. So that's 500 million cells, or about 1.4 million a day. And that's 48 gigawatt hours of energy for
Hmm.
that. Now, the factory's being built, so they're not ready to produce at that level yet, and it'll take them a while to ramp up the factory.
I don't know.
So
They
maybe in
they
a
s-
year or 18 months, they'll get there.
That's what I'm saying. They made it sound like they can get there in a year, because they said that they're going to start selling in Europe maybe next year. Scale
Right.
there. But yes, so the plan right now is for the factory for the Semi was supposed to build 50,000 semis per year. That's starting to ramp. Like you said, it might take them a year to get there. But in order to do the maximum production of Cybertruck and the maximum production of Semi that they've stated, they would need to have a run rate of 2.2 million
Per day.
per day, and we're at 1 million now. So that's if I was to guess, I feel comfortable that we're going to get here by the time that you need this.
They should be able to. It's my understanding that there's 8 lines of battery cell production that they intend to ramp, and they may be running 4 of them right now.
You think they're at 4, so they can double from the 1
3 or
million
4. Yeah.
to 2 million. This is wonderful. I love that you did this. Honestly, thank you for, putting this in this perspective. Okay.
And then if we look forward to what else they could
Sure.
use these for, if all these batteries are not being soaked up by Cybertruck and Semi,
Hmm.
for a while they were producing a structural pack Model Y. They could introduce that again if there is a excess of batteries for any period of time, right? And those vehicles, I believe, use about 828 of the cells. And let's say you are going to make 250,000 of those. There's another, 200 million cells, another 20 gigawatt hours of energy used there. Now, maybe 250 is a too large of a number for that particular product, but just showing some numbers here. And then on the horizon, we have the compact car and the robotaxi. And I made a complete stab in the dark in terms of the number of cells that those vehicles would use,
Hmm.
and the annual production. But just to put some numbers on the page, if you make 500,000 compact cars a year and 1 million robotaxis, you can see you need a pretty significant number of batteries. It would be 3 million per day
Hmm.
total for both of those
Hmm.
at that level. So if Tesla is making, let's say, 1 million batteries a day, the total of all this is about 6 million a day. So they would need to 6x production in order to reach this. That could happen over a period of time. It
Hmm.
seems clear to me that they have designs on making, the quantity of vehicles that we see on this page at some point, right? And it's just a question of how quickly they can get there.
Well, let's go back to your original. Sorry, I'm going to flip all the way back to the back if I can. If we go back to here, like the original run, how fast it got them. Where's your thing? The daily run rate, right here.
Hmm.
If I just took this, and again, I shouldn't, but if you're going, this is how quickly the run rate jumped. Don't you have another graph that shows how quickly you think the run rate went up to 1 million? Where's it? Where's it now?
Is the chart with
Per day.
the red arrow on it
Where is it? This one.
here? Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. If I just look at it by month, how many months it took. Now, again, you can't do this like you say, but 500,000 to 1 million, it took only, in this case, it showed 1 month, dude. But yeah, I mean, it took, let's say 3 months to go from 200,000 to 1 million. I mean, obviously you can't do this, but
The
I'm just
whole
trying
idea
to,
with the 4680 process was to make it less complex and make it so that you could massively scale.
okay, there you go.
And so I think we're seeing the early signs of that.
Yeah.
I think it is an open question as to how quickly they can massively scale. But if they've truly figured this out, then bringing up new lines of battery manufacturing will allow them to scale probably a lot quicker than most of us realize.
That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah. How long did
Yep.
it take them to scale in the first place, to get to the 1 million per day, which we're guessing at. But anyways, yeah. So, 6x, okay. In order for that, and
Yep.
it's going to take several years for us to finally, to get this. It'll take us about a year or two to get to here, another year or two to get to here. So, okay, feeling comfortable.
And the total of all this on this page, by the way, is about 200 gigawatt hours
Mhm.
of energy, right?
Oh,
And so
right.
just keep
Yeah.
that number in the back of your mind for the next chart, which
Mhm.
is from Battery Day, when they said in order to electrify the world's transportation system,
Yeah.
you need about 10 terawatt hours. So if you're doing 200 gigawatt hours a year, that's 50 years worth at that level to get to the 10 terawatt hours.
Yeah. They still need to go bigger.
Yeah. Now, not that Tesla is going to electrify every single vehicle in the world, but they're just saying that, you know, in total, collectively, we need to get to that level. And what was nice about this chart, it kind of showed the relative size of the different transportation markets, so to speak. So trucking is a big one in terms of the energy needed, and the compact and midsize is the largest. So if there's a hole in Tesla's product portfolio,
Mhm.
that is the place. Now that assumes that that autonomy doesn't come and the market stays the way that it is.
Mhm.
If we have autonomy, then the market changes quite significantly, and many people that would be buying a compact or a mid-sized vehicle would just be using transportation as a service. So that part of the market could shrink very quickly.
And you only need 1/5 of one robotaxi for 5 cars. That's what they say. So
Something like that. So maybe this number of 10 terawatt hours is higher than it needs to be.
love it. Okay. That's relative size. So let's talk
Yeah.
semi. Yeah. So I'm
Yeah.
shocked about this. Everybody kept saying semi is a great business, but really the only reason Tesla's going to do this is for the environment. Now you're trying to tell me that it's actually $1 trillion business for Tesla, possibly. So yeah.
Yeah, it could even be bigger than that. So let's kind of build this up. So Tesla's first customer is Pepsi,
Hmm.
and they disclosed this week that they have 86 Tesla Semi. It
Hmm.
wasn't totally clear if they're all in operation and being deployed just yet, but it sounded like they were. It's my understanding that that Pepsi placed an order for 100 Tesla Semi.
Hmm.
And so they're getting close to that number. And I believe that Tesla's going to start selling to another customer, providing semis to another customer here before the end of the year.
Hmm.
Okay. But as I note on the bottom of the slide, Pepsi has a large fleet. They have 12,600 or so tractor trucks or semi trucks, or combination trucks is another term for it. So I just note that they only have 12,504 more to buy.
It's a lot. Yep, that's great.
It's a lot. I'm going to have trouble keeping it, keeping the count on this chart. It was hard enough putting 86 on here, but as they get into the thousands, it's going to be difficult.
It's a lot, but not a lot. I mean, we're talking 12,000 vehicles.
Yeah.
But we're at the beginning. We're going to get to the 50,000 run rate per year when the factory's up. And these guys, and based on the pilot and what everybody said, this was a runaway hit. It hit every single milestone that they were hoping it to hit. But being able to go long haul with heavy load, driver acceptance, faster speed, easier maneuvering in the cities. They didn't have to charge it as long as they assumed that they were going to. Everything like that. Everything was just a tremendous win for the pilot. So it's looking like they're going to go ahead and buy more.
I think they will, and I think the economics will show why. One thing I didn't fully appreciate is the size of Pepsi's fleet. Apparently, they're the largest private truck fleet owner in the country, made up of tractors, which is semi-trucks, combination trucks, and then trucks, which is a straight line truck. So a truck that's just, doesn't have a trailer that turns. So in terms of number of tractors, 12,590. Also on this list, big companies everybody knows like Walmart, Cisco, the food distribution company, U.S. Foods, another food distributor, and the fifth one, Performance Food Group as well. So a lot of the food distribution companies. Amazon's on the list. There's a lot of companies that people know. So that's one aspect of the business. The other side of things is the carriers, sort of the for-hire carriers. So
first of all, thank you for putting this list together. This is exactly the data I was hoping to find, which is, who are the companies? How many trucks, semis would they need? And Pepsi happens to be number one. That's why they went with them. You're thinking the next one could be UPS, right? And UPS is not on this list because they're not they do this, right?
They're a carrier. That's
carrier.
Right. So
okay.
FedEx is the largest carrier in the country with over 38,000 tractor trucks.
Even more.
Right. So that's absolutely massive. And that shouldn't be surprising to anybody. Anytime you drive on the interstate, you see a lot of FedEx trucks. And you would probably recognize most of these other trucking companies as well. FedEx is number 5 on the list with 16,500 or so trucks. But anytime you drive on any of the U.S. interstate highways, you see trucks from Knight, J.B. Hunt, RL Carriers, and the others. Now, what surprised me was the next page. When you add up these trucking companies, they account for a tiny percentage of all the trucks that are out there. Now, of course, this doesn't show the breakdown that Pepsi and Walmart and so on have. This is just the carriers. That FedEx, I think, has like 1.3% of the trucks. Now, I'm using a number here of 13.5 million registered trucks, and that includes the semi trucks, of which there's about 3 million of, and the rest of the trucks would be the straight trucks. These are all trucks that weigh more than 10,000 pounds. Right. So there's a lot of trucks out there. It's a big market. And so I wanted to put some numbers to this and figure out how big the market opportunity really is.
Yeah, I guess it, like you say, right? It depends on the ROI. So if you're a big corporation like this, I can see them going ahead and buying these electric vehicles. They're testing it. It's important. It's a big, hit to their balance sheet. But if you're a tiny little company, and it says here that vast majority are probably onesie twosie people, would they switch? Well, I think they might, because it's pretty significant, right? The savings?
The answer is absolutely yes, and we'll get to that in just a second. But here's kind of a big picture view of the market. So if there's 3 million tractor trucks, if each of those trucks, if you sell for $200,000 a piece, that's a $600 billion market opportunity. Now, this is not per year. This is, let's say, if a truck lasts 15 years, then it's a $600 billion opportunity over a 15-year period. Okay. How many semi-factories would Tesla need that, like the one they're making in Sparks, Nevada, well, they would need 4 of them, making 50,000 trucks a year for 15 years
Mhm.
in order to capture that market. That assumes there's no competition. I'm just showing
Yeah.
at the limit what the opportunity could be. And you would need 5.5 million 4680 batteries per day to be produced in order to have the capacity to do that. Now, straight trucks, it seems clear too that Tesla will play in this market at some point, and there's 10.5 or so million of them, and that's a $2.1 trillion market opportunity over a 15-year period, right? And they would need 14 semi factories to meet that demand. So in total, 18 factories, a $2.7 trillion opportunity if the average truck sells for $200,000, and a mere 24.5 million batteries a day produced. And if they're at a million today, then they've got a ways to go.
Yeah. I mean, the factory is based on a 50,000 annual semi production capacity per factory, but there's no reason why it's limited to 50,000. It could be, I mean, we have factories that can produce 1 million cars. And so why wouldn't you be able to just do one factory? So I don't think it's a number of factories, but I know you're just saying compared to what it is today. You know?
Yeah, we can see what's being built in Sparks, Nevada,
Yeah.
and just in terms of the size of that factory. So just in terms of the scale, it's 18 times that.
Yep. I was told that actually it's very easy to build a semi comparatively to a normal
Mm,
vehicle. It doesn't have, as many part, whatever. I don't know. I can't remember. Somebody explained it to me. Okay.
yep. So it's a big opportunity, and again, this assumes Tesla has 100% market share.
Right.
They likely won't,
Yeah.
and I'm not suggesting that they will. I'm just sort of putting some numbers around the opportunity.
Hmm.
Yeah.
It's big.
So
Hmm.
speaking of the market, there are some existing EV truck manufacturers today, and there are a couple of players that are existing truck manufacturing firms: Volvo Trucks and Freightliner. Volvo has their VNR tractors, and they've got several different varieties. This is their largest one, the 6x4 tractor, and it has a battery size of 565 kilowatt hours and a range of about 275 miles. So the energy efficiency of this truck in kilowatt hours per mile is about 2.05, which
Hmm.
is reasonable. And it has a purchase price, the best I can tell, of around $200,000. Okay, that gets you a range of about 275 miles. Freightliner's eCascadia truck has a battery size that's smaller, and you can see the picture there on the top right. Looks very much like a normal looking truck. Actually, both of these look like normal trucks, although apparently they have to be green if they're EV trucks.
Sure.
This truck has a range of 230 miles
Hmm.
and efficiency of 1.9 kilowatt hours per mile. So that's also pretty good. And that costs about 210,000, best I can tell. Okay. The Tesla Semi, we believe, has a battery pack of around 900 kilowatt hours and a range, according to Pepsi, they disclosed this week, of about 560 miles and an efficiency of
Jesus.
1.61 kilowatt hours per mile. Shortly after the presentation that Dan Priestley made in Germany, Elon put out a tweet. He said that they think they can get to 1.2 in efficiency.
This
Okay,
is
so
where your original presentation earlier was all about the 4680 batteries. And if you can make that at scale, so first of all, it's a reinvention of a battery. And two, it's at
mhm,
scale. You can now get more range for less cost, for less weight, for less, everything will be just going down. And then you have obviously performance is even better. So, yes, there are competitors, but none of these competitors make batteries.
right.
So, and if they have to buy the battery from BYD or somebody else who copies Tesla, which again will be a couple of years behind, they would then have to pay those guys margin. So,
And they appear to be making trucks that look just like normal trucks off
mhm.
maybe the same platforms that they had. And Dan Priestley in his presentation this week said it's important actually to design a whole new platform from the ground up,
Why is that?
which is what Tesla's done. Well, there's certain design things I don't think that you would do if you were just making an EV truck You design it very differently.
Hmm.
I don't know specifically what they are, but I can imagine that just like electric vehicles,
Yeah.
right? You don't take a gas car and rip out the insides and put in a bunch of batteries. You design it differently from the ground up,
Hmm.
and you end up with a much more efficient vehicle by doing that. Um, and so that may be what holds these companies back. But from a price point,
Yeah.
they may be offering reasonable value. So what we don't know yet for Tesla is what will they sell the Semi for?
Hmm.
Okay. Now, the one thing we do know, which is kind of interesting, is for each Semi that Tesla produces batteries in house for, they'll receive about $40,500 in IRA credits or IRA tax credits.
Hmm.
So there's a nice incentive for Tesla to make their own batteries to put in the Semi and the Cybertruck and other vehicles. That's a pretty healthy amount of money. Again, the other trucking companies will not have that advantage.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's now explore, though, the benefits of EV truck versus diesel. I'm using Tesla Semi as the example here. Let's assume that a truck travels 150,000 miles a year, which is not a stretch for these kinds of vehicles. A diesel truck might have a miles per gallon of about 7 miles per gallon, and therefore will need about 21,429 gallons of fuel per year. It's a shocking amount of fuel that these trucks burn in a year. And if the cost of diesel is $3.50, which I believe is the nationwide average right now, then you're looking at about $75,000 of fuel costs for these trucks. Compare that with the Tesla Semi. If we first look at an efficiency of 1.61, which is what Pepsi has reported, with a fully loaded truck, by the way, that's not with chips in the truck. That's with beverages,
Beverages heavy. Yeah.
heavy. And the energy per year would be 241,000 kilowatt hours. And the average cost of electricity for a commercial enterprise in the United States is about 12 cents per kilowatt hour. So the cost of energy is about $29,000. Now, if they can get to what Elon suggested of 1.2 efficiency, then the cost of the energy would be about $22,000 a year. If they can drive that down further. Okay. Look at the fuel savings.
Yeah.
The annual fuel savings amounts to about $46,000
Yeah.
on up to $53,000. It's a 60 to 70% savings
Yeah.
on the cost of diesel.
If you're saving 50 grand a year instead of paying it on gas, then in 4 years you've paid off for the truck, the cost of the $200,000 truck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is just the fuel savings. There's other cost of ownership benefits on the truck. You don't have oil changes.
Yeah.
Right. You don't have
Repairs.
repair on things in the engine that might break down. If you're driving 150,000 miles a year, there's repairs that have to be made on a diesel truck all the time. And also then if you don't have repairs to be made, then the uptime of the truck is probably higher. Right? So there's other benefits besides the numbers just on this page. So it's pretty staggering. So the question then is, how much should somebody be willing to pay for a Tesla Semi, right? And so let's explore that a little bit on the next slide. Let's say the average Semi sells for 200,000.
Right.
And Tesla prices their Semi at 250. So you're paying $50,000 more. That's
Sure.
the red bar on the left,
Yeah.
right? That's the extra money that you're having to put up front now to
Mhm.
be in an EV Semi. Well, if you're saving $50,000 a year in fuel,
Jesus.
then you get that money back the first year,
Yep.
right? It's a 99.9% internal rate of return.
Yeah. It's huge.
And I ran this just over 10 years. So these trucks actually can run 15 years perhaps.
Exactly. I mean, why would you not go ahead and switch out all your diesels to electric vehicles? Unless, of course, it's cash flow, right? You've already paid for a diesel car and you'll keep it going, right? Or would you switch if you already paid for a diesel? Would you switch? If it's
Potentially.
50, you might do it, right? Because if it's 50 grand a year, why would you? It's not like, oh, I already paid for the vehicle. It's like I'm paying 50 grand a year. Yeah.
If it's an older vehicle and there's a lot more repairs, then yes, absolutely.
Just switch it. Get
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, the next one is if Tesla prices their vehicle at 300,000,
Right.
the payback period is 2 years, the IRR is 49%. That's still excellent.
Hmm.
So 300,000 is justifiable. The next one is 350,000 or 150,000 more. The IRR is 31%, still
Hmm.
outstanding.
Yep.
And then finally, if Tesla sold their trucks for $400,000,
Basically, what are you saying? What are you trying to tell me, sir? They can charge whatever
yeah.
they want.
Well, so it's not quite this good. So the one thing that's not reflected here is you will have some infrastructure costs you're going to have to pay for, right? And let's say that you are a trucking company, you're running from one depot to another, or the trucks are at a couple of different depots and they're doing runs during the day and coming back. Let's say you need to put $5 million worth of infrastructure in place, and let's say you have a fleet of
What
50
are you talking
trucks.
about? Mega chargers?
Mega chargers, maybe a couple mega packs, $1 million each, and the infrastructure associated with that for charging.
Hmm.
Let's say it's a $5 million investment for 50 trucks.
Hmm.
So that's another $100,000 per truck. And so you can still use the same charts that I used, and you can still see, even if Tesla charges $300,000 a truck and there's an extra $100,000 a truck for infrastructure, you're in that last chart that I just showed you, you still have an IRR of 21%,
Hmm.
even with a $5 million infrastructure investment.
And don't these mega chargers, don't these battery packs, don't they just pay for themselves anyways? Like,
They
what if
probably
you,
do.
because I
Yep.
mean, we've already proven that there's an ROI just for that alone. And so, if
Yeah.
you, I'd love to know, could you actually put solar panels on a factory roof? How much does that generate? How much could you reduce your cost for the electricity, the 12 cents
Right.
per kilowatt?
That's right. So I think I've satisfied myself that the infrastructure spend is not really an issue. It's not a problem.
Hmm.
Now, the problem might be in terms of interconnecting with the existing, utility and so on. That those kinds of issues are out there still. But from an economic standpoint, it appears that the numbers work, even if Tesla sold the truck for $300,000.
Hmm.
Right, and we don't yet know. Dan Priestley in his presentation said they want to price it as close as they can to comparable diesel trucks.
Okay. Whoa.
Right
It could be
now,
even cheaper than you realize. Yeah.
could be. Who knows what that means?
Hmm.
I could see them doing that in the early years because, again, the IRA credits give Tesla an extra $40,000 to play with per truck. Right, so they don't have to make that money from the customer. That's coming from the government. So they could price it to be very competitive in the early years. Now, when the IRA credits go away, then maybe the pricing gets a little bit higher. But by then, maybe Tesla has achieved some level of scale where they can still offer very low prices. But either way, this business to me looks like a very attractive opportunity for Tesla, and in particular for its customers. If you are a trucking fleet, absolutely this makes sense. If you are an individual truck owner, it would make sense provided that the charging infrastructure is there because you're
Right.
not going to pay
Hmm.
$5 million to put charging infrastructure in place.
Hmm.
But eventually it will be in place, nationwide.
Well, most my understanding is that most runs are actually short haul. Like the driver goes home every night. That's the
Yeah.
vast majority. So I'd be curious to know, do you need a mega charger in your factory, in your office?
Probably not if you have one truck,
Could you get away with a supercharger? Or
maybe.
could you get away with, plug it in like we all do?
Uh, that would probably take a bit too long. You might have to plug it into all your neighbors' houses at the same time.
Yeah, I'd be curious to know, right? Like,
Yep.
yeah, what could you install? Probably a supercharger or mega charger. I don't know the difference between the two. So,
It's like charging 10 Model Ys at once,
okay,
right? So you need some pretty hefty charging infrastructure for that to
okay, so
work.
you do need a mega charger then.
Yeah.
Um,
The final thing is, and this is kind of, non-economic, but just to keep in mind,
yeah,
um, in the United States, these combination trucks, semi trucks account for 1% of the vehicles. They account for 20% of US vehicle emissions
there you
and
go.
36% of particulate emissions.
Yeah.
Diesel trucks are deadly. This is absolutely terrible. The sooner we get these things off the road, the better off we're all going to be from a health perspective. But the good news is there's going to be a massive economic incentive to drive this. right? And that's the beautiful thing. And that we will see this industry change in the next 10, 15, 20 years.
Yeah, there's no doubt, given the numbers you've shown. I mean, the most important thing is not, yes, environment is critical, but more importantly, like you said, is money drives change. And
Yep.
so even the small guys may decide to do this because of the amount of gas that you have to pay. It's just crazy amount, and you can get rid of that, and then all the other benefits out of this. Okay. That is great. I love the way that you combine both 4680 cells and the semi. That is what 4680 cells are being used right now. We're at almost, you think, maybe at 1 million per day. It's very likely, given your logic that you shared with us. It could be higher. We need to get to the 6 million a day. Then we can, there's this great metrics that you give us, things to track and see how we're doing. But can't be, I'm so excited. Now I'm excited. I didn't know how important 4680 cells are, but now that we're ramping, and then I didn't realize Tesla Semi could actually be a massive business. Thank you for sharing all that data.
It's been a long road for 4680, but I think we're getting there. We're on the cusp of something, I think, pretty amazing.
Exactly.
I'm excited about this as well.
Yeah, they're going to scale it, and then it's not over. They're going to continue to, solve the dry cathode. They'll finally improve everything that they promised. They'll slowly get that, but doesn't matter. It's already tremendously valuable. Thank you so much, Cern. Follow him on X at Cern Basher. This kind of data he puts, he publishes it every week. Subscribe to him. You have a subscription, Cern?
Yeah. I have asked X for a subscription, but it's only a $1 subscription. So even when it's approved, it'll be next to nothing.
You are underselling yourself. You are one of the best analysts out there because of the data that you produce, original data, fantastic analysis. As always, you want to know, we've done so many shows now, everything, robots, Airbnb versus, Tesla, all these things. Thank you so much, Cern. Follow him there. Thanks, everybody.
My pleasure, Herbert. Thank you.
I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.